You know, if you throw a table at the jury, it's probably okay to jump into the well in order to catch the table.
I'm going to guess there was a recess at the end of that. Just say, like, why don't we take 5? Yeah. All right. Okay. Hey, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Season 1, Episode 1, A Normal Amount of Rage. We open with Jennifer Walters, our protagonist, practicing a closing argument for a trial. She asks the question, what is the responsibility of those with power? She's referring to a corporation, but obviously that's the major MCU theme. Great power comes great responsibility. And we learn that her co-workers know that she already is She-Hulk in this moment.
I think it's merely one co-worker. Because really, why would that guy be acting like a dick otherwise? I mean, really, she really should have taken that guy aside and like, look, you want me to smack you around, little boy?
That's a great point. It's probably, just her friend, the paralegal, who knows her secret identity, which is about to be not so secret. Because we end with Jennifer revealing herself as She-Hulk in a courtroom to save the people from a villain named Titania?
I think it's Titania.
Titania. Okay. Then transforming back to Jennifer Walters and saying, I'm ready to give my closing arguments. Obviously referring back to the question that we got at the beginning of the show, what is the responsibility of those with power? So she's framed. And then we get a post-credits scene in which we learn when Steve Rogers lost his virginity, 1943. Paul.
Yes.
What did you think of episode 1?
I enjoyed it very much. I was a little cautiously optimistic before the show aired because I felt like they were very selective in what they were showing us. And boy, they did not show very much, if anything at all, of his or her battle with her cousin. They were clearly saving all that. So there was quite a bit that they did not show us, and I was pleased with just about all that I saw.
She does the whole breaking the fourth wall thing,
yes,
kind of Deadpool style, which apparently is from the comic as well. I'm not that familiar with the comic, but
the comic breaking. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the comic. I bought the comic when it was first released, when Stan Lee created it. It was around the time of the Hulk, which is why they created the comic, because they were concerned that the makers of the show would release, so have their own like sort of Bionic Woman, the way they had Lindsay Wagner was a counterpart to Lee Major's Bionic Man. So they were afraid that they would come out with a She-Hulk and then Marvel wouldn't own the rights to it. So they quickly got it on a comic, written by Stan and drawn by John Buscema, a great artist. And really, it's funny, the aspect that originated in that comic with her being a lawyer and being pursued by the mob, which is why she got shot in the comic. So not the same here. But the place where the whole breaking the fourth wall came was from John Byrne's run. John Byrne, famously from the X-Men, he also did a stint on Fantastic Four and Captain America. But when he took over the comic, really, he added a lot of humor to it and a bit of Jen Walters speaking to the audience or even the artist, sort of like Duck Amuck, actually.
Duck Amuck, which we've referenced back with the Star Trek recaps.
Exactly, yeah. So, it's like that version of the character existed before Deadpool. So, people are sort of used to Deadpool talking to the audience, but She-Hulk in the comics did it before he even existed. Yes, exactly, which is interesting. I don't think it would be interesting to see if John Byrne claimed that was, a bit of an influence of why he was doing that. But it makes it a nice, synergy in that was a lawyer show that had breaking of the fourth wall and very fantastical elements like a dancing baby.
And I guess one of the first breaking the fourth wall moments from my, my era that I remembered, like, oh, they're breaking the fourth wall, was Ferris Bueller, right? That was
yes.
It's like, oh, hey, go home.
Yes.
What are you still doing here? I love it.
Yeah.
So the fourth wall break that I think I appreciated the most in this episode was at some point she's talking about the show, and then she says something like, lawyer show. It's a lawyer show.
Yes, she does. That was at the top where she's like, yes, I am a Hulk, she says, and you're probably not going to be able to get that out of your mind until I give you my origin, basically. And so after she comes back, she's like, so now I don't need to be a Hulk anymore. And lawyer show, yes.
Yeah. So it's like in other words, don't get hung up on the whole I'm a Hulk thing. I am a lawyer. That's what this show is about.
Yes.
That was pretty good. I like that. And maybe it's setting up, perhaps in future episodes here that there might be a jealousy in some ways of like everybody loves the She-Hulk persona. And not so much the, hey, look, I'm the functional person here. Why do you care whether I'm big and green and powerful? I'm a lawyer. Anyway, so that could be where that's going.
Certainly an aspect that's going to happen is she'll be approached by the opposing counsel. Their company is the one that she works for in the comics. That company that's named after Goodman, who was the publisher of Marvel Comics, and Stanley Lieber, and Jack Kirby, so that's where she's going to work, almost certainly.
And so she's going to be defending superpowered people, yeah? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and that'll be part of their practice, so that practice explicitly looks for those kind of cases.
So that premise obviously works quite well. I was reminded of, actually my wife reminded me about it, Harvey Birdman,
yes.
attorney at law, which is very funny bits. And here's what would be awesome. It almost certainly won't happen, but if you had let's say episode 6, it's Harvey Birdman versus Jennifer Walters in a courtroom. It'd be like, oh wow. Anyway, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, they don't need to, but yes.
It's a half-hour format. It's kind of interesting, right?
Yes. It's sitcom, more sitcom than WandaVision, certainly.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, there's some, some drama here, but I think it's being played for laughs. I would say that this was almost by design and by necessity a exposition heavy type episode, origin story. It's the origin story. So it wasn't like laugh.
Yeah.
But
I was impressed with how quickly they got to the island or the remote Mexican land where Bruce had separated himself so he wouldn't hurt anybody. So he could train.
Yeah, they just kind of moved.
It was very quick where it's like, bam, they're in the car after, she says, okay, this is the story. And then there's the accident that occurs. And then she, turns quickly, goes out and, not very long before she ends up turning again and blacking out.
And keep in mind, I mean, I assume this is important for later. What causes the accident is a Sakaar ship. Spaceship shows up in front of them. Doesn't help them.
Yes.
Nice of them to not do, I guess. Like, what the hell? We're here to see Bruce. Oh, he just fell down a mountain. Oh, well.
Those crazy humans.
So
I guess he doesn't want to talk now. He wants to do that for a while. Okay, well, we'll talk to him later. Now, a lot of people have speculated, and I don't think it's been confirmed in any way, but that this will be the introduction of Scar, the character, who is the Hulk's son that he had when he was on Sakaar.
That would be a big, important moment in the MCU.
Yeah, which would just ruin the character. You should only have an alter ego. That's the way the character is, Having him get a son? What kind of stories will come out of that? Oh.
Paul and I talked about this. I made a mistake of stepping into the trigger. It's the Paul trigger. I made he's hulking out. I made the case that I'm like, I feel just my feeling, and I'm obviously wrong. I'll just say that because that's obviously. But, I just feel like it feels like they let Hulk down a bit over the years. This is not in this show, but just the fact that...
no, because it certainly started in Avengers Endgame, actually.
Right, it started in Endgame. You're right, because even as far back as Ragnarok, in Ragnarok he at least had the issue of if I don't want to change, because if I do, I may not be able to change back, and so that was still like this conflict between these two selves. I just feel like the nature of I don't have control over this thing that I become. And I can attempt to control it. I can, hell, Bill Bixby tried to, for 5 seasons, tried to figure out how to control.
They really milked that.
Almost 100 episodes of him trying to figure out how to control the Hulk.
Yes.
Anyway, but I like that duality of like, hey, this is a power, but it's so risky for me to use it that I don't want to use it that much. And so you have to like, do I want it? Do I want it in this moment? Do I not? There's a cost benefit every time you use it. And I feel like they've gotten to a stage where he's like, I'll just click the thing on my arm and now I'm fine. And now I have the power and I don't really have to wonder about the risks of it so much.
I don't think the thing on his arm helps him control it, because now I don't think he's wearing that anymore. The thing on his arm is helping him to heal. The thing on his arm was helping him to heal, so that if he turned into the Hulk, it would interfere with him healing.
Just saying that I liked that nature of his power set.
The thing I told you that someone told me about, which I wasn't even aware of, which is a character that is a different variation on Bruce Banner, and that character is the Maestro. Now, apparently this is sort of Banner in a different reality, but this is someone who is Hulk-like, but he's very, very smart, but he's also villainous. So you see, there are many different variations. One thing I think that should be admired about it is, like, you could say, like, wow, that's, they had 5 years of the Incredible Hulk show, and he's always trying to do it. And then once it failed, and so you got to go to a new town and meet new people and find a new problem.
Couldn't drive a car.
Which is, like a lot of shows, like The Prisoner and, other shows where it's like, Kung Fu, where it's like, I can't settle down and have normal characters. Every week is just a new town. And, that's, if you tell yourself your character is something can never happen, otherwise the character can't exist, to me, that's the thing you do. Because it's better to feel like you have, options in the story rather than none. So if you find yourself painted into a corner, you find a way to get out of that corner, is what I would say. And so that's why I think you can look at Banner's progress over the years, where in the first movie he is on the run and people are chasing him, and then people are slowly finding a use for him, but he still can't control it. And they're finding ways with the lullaby and all that of trying to address it. And then they had him be Hulk for 2 years, and the character was able to develop from being a pre-verbal person into a sort of rudimentary character.
Yes, yeah, right. He had in like Thor Ragnarok, he could, Thor.
Right. Which made it interesting.
Fire, Thor.
Yes, you puny arms, me, huge arms. So you have in Avengers Infinity where he can't even turn into the Hulk reliably. In Endgame, he's combined them. That's a nice arc. That's a nice character arc. And if you're like too afraid to do that because you're like, oh, what do we do? It's like, well, let's get a writer in here.
There are certainly plot elements to go to with this character. I'm just thinking one of the really, to me, interesting traits of the Hulk is I may do as much harm as good if I use my power. Like, he is this giant loose cannon, and I like the place that he holds in the giant story of the MCU with that power and that disadvantage. And so anyway, that's all. And so he's kind of figured out a way to solve it. And as you say, over time, stories grow, and maybe there's even a spot where he loses that ability at some point.
Yeah, to me, they certainly could start to ask, why does that duality exist? Has he truly integrated them or not? So I think there's still ways to explore it.
And to bring that into She-Hulk, she has apparently does not have a dual persona. Now, maybe
Yes.
maybe that's not true. Maybe she will in fact have one. But at the moment,
You know,
she
in the
doesn't,
comics,
and that
when
really
she
surprises
began,
me.
she was like Bruce in that way. But yeah, by the time that John Byrne took over the character, I think she was spending a lot of time basically as herself, as She-Hulk. So
And you know, it's one of those things too. This is the origin story to a comedic show.
yes,
And so to look too hard behind the, I came
veil?
up with a sketch about a supervillain named Dr. Argus, and his cat keeps getting in his way, Sir Pouncival. I would be very annoyed if the audience was like, well, how did Dr. Argus get his powers? Now, I'm like, no, it's funny. Just please enjoy the comedy in this for what it is. Interestingly, you know, it is a law show, and Paul and I both work in the legal field. So
We do.
It's speaking to us in some way.
yeah. So I'm going to be with you, actually having more literal law experience than myself. I will be asking you questions about, you know, how does it stand up. I mean, one of the things that I've heard from Legal Eagle, another YouTube.
How dare you watch another YouTube channel, Paul?
Yes. Yeah. Well, too bad, buddy. But one thing he always says, which it does look like she was doing, was walking into the well of the court, you know, of the jury, and you're not supposed to do that.
Good call, especially maybe after there's been like you've thrown
yeah,
some of the table.
Yeah, then it's probably okay. You know, if you throw a table at the jury, it's probably okay to jump into the well in order to catch the table.
I'm gonna guess there was a recess at the end of that. Just say like, why don't we take 5? Yeah. All right. Okay.
To which, you know, Jen might have been like, "No, you won't let me get my clothing now." Because really, don't you think it's more effective? You know, it's like, oh, okay, here I have shown
it's a shock value?
that
Yeah.
Well, also too, here I've shown how to be responsible with power, and now I'm going to give this speech about how they weren't responsible with power.
Great point. You're like, look, I just gave you an exhibit. That's a demonstrative.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't just give you a PowerPoint. I literally had someone come in, I beat the hell out of them, and I showed you.
Yeah. Do you think, in the jury room, are they asking themselves, did she stage that?
It's right. Where did that person come from? He just walked in.
Yeah, I think you can assume that the bailiff did not have an easy time of keeping her out. So.
Pretty good.
You know, she comes in like, you know, like Kool-Aid, and you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the Bruce Banner stuff was great in terms of just, I mean, he mentors her, although she doesn't take a lot of his advice for now.
Yes,
I wonder if like maybe that's going to be a later thing where she thinks she's got it all figured out. She realizes at some point everything goes to hell, and that she knows that he's there for her, so she can like reach out to him or something if need be, and maybe that's
sure. I would assume like in most situations it'll be her talking to him over the phone or something, or find a way for her to visit him. I mean, one thing about both of them being Hulks is they can travel quite easily without too much help. You know, they just bounce around. So I'd be shocked if we didn't see more of this. You know, what that Sakaran ship is about.
Right.
You know.
And we know from the trailers that we're going to get several cameos, or even maybe more than cameos. Like Wong is going to appear.
Yep. We know Wong is here.
Abomination is going to appear.
Yep.
Daredevil is going to appear.
Yep.
So we're getting a lot of that, which will be cool.
I think Frogman is supposed to show up too. I think Frogman.
Get him, Frogman. Which kind of reminds me a little bit of the cast of characters that showed up for the Suicide Squad show. Right?
Yes,
where they were like
yes.
just bringing in all these minor, the Weasel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You know, and two, you can also point to similarities between this and the Harley Quinn animated show, also too, where they're bringing in some sort of C-level characters and villains just for comedic factor.
How absurd is this character in real life? Here's how absurd.
So yeah, I'm really pleased. You know, it just reminded me that you know, I really like the creator of the series, Jessica Gao. She won an Emmy, and I think it was well deserved, for the Pickle Rick episode of Rick and Morty.
Pickle Rick episode.
Yeah. So, you know, it's you know, and one thing I really appreciated about that was, you know, the how the craziness that you typically see in that show with Rick and the Rats. But yes, right. But then you had those therapy sessions wherein it showed you that they were aware of what the characters, real situations are, and what is that's mined for comedy in the show, which is the crazy nature of Rick and the relationship with his family. And so it's just so well written as a show. And Jessica Gao was responsible for that, and so she is.
You're bringing that similar
show.
Energy you're saying here.
Yeah, well, there were a number of points when they were talking where she was, saying like, "Look here, like you asked me to consider it. I've considered it. I'm still leaving. It's like, I understand that he's mad at her because she hasn't not taking his advice, but he's not taking consideration that she's a different person and different needs. And she asked him, why would you want this fate for me? So, it's good in that it's setting you up to establish that she's a different person and wants different needs, and that she can help people in her own way. People expect that the superheroes only have certain tropes or whatever, and this is expanding it, which is good for the MCU, that you have a legal show.
And I think you're saying that this particular writer has shown that she can work very well with green-colored heroes.
I think she has, yes.
Only green heroes.
Yes.
Pickles,
yes.
Hulks.
And, frogs. So you see, yes, frogs. She's very good with the green. Yes.
I'm expecting Kermit to show up.
Yep. He'll be singing, and they'll say it's actually pretty easy being green.
And it's a great point that energy of like some action, some fun, like physical stuff, but then also something that can be introspective and actually almost be like a meta type exploration of what the show's about is very useful for this show, and so I think that would be really cool to bring in.
Yeah, apparently Jessica Gao was saying that initially she was putting that fourth wall breaking in the show a lot more than we saw, and then they told her to pull it back.
I could see how that, if there's a threshold at which you're like, okay, that's too much. And she didn't hit that in this episode. Yeah. I did like the first, well, it wasn't her first take to the camera, but it was one of the, I think chronologically the first, when they do the flashback, and then she ends up talking to the camera for what would be the first time. She does this thing where she looks, and Bruce looks as well, and so it's like a little whoop, whoop, whoop. And they both do the little, like, wait, were you just talking to the camera? It's a nice little physical bit.
Yeah. It was reminiscent of Fleabag.
Right, yeah. Good point. So there we go. That is episode 1 of She-Hulk. Very cool. We're going to be covering Rings of Power, obviously, in the very near future. I think we're going to be covering House of the Dragon. We're gonna. I mean, we both saw the first episode. I think we both liked it. So anyway, we're gonna try to juggle all these shows. Let's just see how this goes. How to keep everything in the air. So come on back for that, Paul. I appreciate it as always, good sir.
Oh, sure, certainly.
And we will catch everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.